Since Kaylee and Sarah cannot behave, listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Nacho Fitness Coach, the podcast where fitness is more about fun than form.
I'm Sarah, the fitness expert who lifts heavy and loves a good challenge.
And I'm Kaylee, a newbie who runs more for survival than sport.
We're here to remind you that fitness doesn't have to be serious,
but we definitely take the snacks seriously.
So if you're looking for some laughs and a few questionable fitness tips,
you've come to the right place. Welcome to season 5.
So Kaylee, what do you like to listen to when you work out?
I don't know, sometimes a podcast and sometimes music.
Hey, wait, this is a podcast. What if you could have both?
At the same time?
Oh, yeah. Podbeat is a free mobile app that lets you add any beat style to any podcast for your workout. It's easy to do and free to download in the App Store. Kaylee, you sound pretty cool with the trap beat, but Sarah, the funk beat works for your voice.
So if you want to make our podcast work for a workout, check it out in the App Store.
They even have Podbeat for Android users in the Google Play Store. Okay, on to the show. Welcome back to Nacho Fitness Coach. Today we have a special guest, Justin Nault, a certified nutritional therapist, specialist in fitness nutrition, and founder of Clovis. He's also a professional musician and host of the Clovis Culture podcast. Justin is here to share his unique insights on health, wellness, and the harmony between nutrition and lifestyle. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're super excited about this conversation because, I spent some time on the website and just kind of poked around and stuff a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is some good stuff.
Yeah, a lot of it aligns with kind of what we bark about here.
Absolutely. Bark. Is that what we call it these days?
I mean,
I soapbox about just bark, whatever. Reach. Okay, so how did you get started in all of this? What's kind of a little bit more background than, just our quick little intro there?
Yeah, well, based on what we talked about before we recorded, you and I probably have a lot in common where I came into it through the side door. Like health and wellness for me was all about fitness and body image. Like that was it, Played hockey when I was a kid for like 10 years. And then I was a fat kid growing up. So I was like, almost 200 pounds going into high school and obsessed with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. So starting age 15, I started lifting weights for 2 hours a day. And then I moved to Boston to go to music school and I became a boxer there, started training 6 days a week. So I was basically bodybuilding in the morning, boxing in the evenings. And then after I graduated Berkeley, I went down to Nashville as a professional musician. So then I was on stage 300 nights a year. And my body was very much like literally under spotlights every night, 300 nights a year. So my kind of like, I don't want to call it like a full-blown eating disorder, but I would say like disordered eating, right? Like I was just like obsessed with my body image and just overtraining. It was like training 6 days a week, no matter what. Didn't matter like how I felt. If I was sick, I was still training. It didn't matter. I just like had to try to get my body fat down. And kind of no matter what I did, no matter how fit I got, like I was 165 pounds deadlifting like 425. And I just like couldn't get my body to look the way that I wanted it to. Looking back now at 38 years old, because I had body dysmorphia and my body was never going to look a way that was good enough for my brain. So it was constant struggling and then getting on stage every night. And it was brutal, and I did a reality TV show on ABC called The Big Time in 2012. That was like the height of my music career. And I had like launched a YouTube channel and done all this crazy stuff. And it was a 12-foot banner of me on Broadway in Nashville.
Nice. Wow. Cool.
What is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. I'm in the Twilight Zone. I've woken up in like the Truman Show somehow.
Yeah.
And filming the show was a really unpleasant experience. I just like didn't enjoy it. And so I was hating my body. I was drinking like 6 nights a week because that's the industry, right? Last calls at 3 a.m. So I'm going to bed at 7 a.m. every morning. And then, waking up at noon to do my hard workout and hate my body more, right? And so around this time, I was introduced to the paleo diet. And I tried that. I did my first paleo reset and lost body fat like effortlessly. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is crazy. Where has this cheat code been? I was like tilapia and brown rice 5 times a day. Like I didn't understand.
Right.
And, so I started having all this success and with my body, and I was doing pretty well in the music career at that point. So my days were my own. So I just started like researching nutrition pretty deeply. And I became a nutritional therapist, like as a hobby. I was like, I'm just going to learn how to do this for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And around that time, my niece was born terminally disabled. So this is 10 years ago now. So I was about 28. She was having over 300 seizures a day. She went straight to the pediatric ICU. They gave her less than 3 years to live. It was really, really gnarly. They ran over $1 million in testing on her. So we were like living, my whole family, like in the pediatric ICU.
Yeah.
And then came the point where they had to make the decision to put her on a G tube, which is they drill a little hole in her stomach and they start feeding her through a tube. And that was when I was introduced to the ketogenic diet, where, okay, the ketogenic diet in a medical setting is to help suppress seizures in children, infants, even teenagers. There's a whole organization we work with called the Charlie Foundation that helps families manage ketogenic living to suppress these seizures in epileptic people. Savannah did not turn out to be epileptic. She was something called KCNQ2. She was one of 96 living cases in the world.
Wow.
Really
Wow.
crazy. And at that time, I knew enough to be annoying to doctors about nutrition.
Yep.
And I just looked at the Gerber baby formula. That is a ketogenic baby formula called KetoCal that they're putting in her feeding tube. And the first few ingredients of a high-fat, low-carb baby formula was hydrogenated vegetable oil.
Oh.
And I was like, this seems odd.
Yeah.
Literally like a bunch of seed oils, artificial flavorings and sweeteners. A lot of the vitamins they're putting in there are like the synthetic, what you might call non-usable forms.
Mm-hmm.
And like, this is insane. This isn't even touching taste buds.
Yeah.
And there's
No.
artificial flavors and sweeteners in it. Like, I don't understand this. So I pointed it out to a neurologist in Nashville, one of the biggest hospitals in the country. And he looks at the ingredients and looks at me and he says, I never thought to check that.
Oh, wow. God, that's crazy.
And my whole life exploded. It sounds cliche now because I've told this story on podcasts so many times. It's like, it was my red pill moment. I was like, oh, nobody is coming to save us.
Yeah.
This is not a bad human. This guy, this
Right.
neurologist,
Yep.
he's trying to help 100%.
He's smart.
Doing standard of care. He's super smart, brilliant guy. Listen to that guy talk. I was like, I felt like a kindergartner, but then I had this moment and I was like, oh my God. And that was when, luckily through paleo and everything, I'd met Rob Wolf and CJ Hunt and all these really cool guys. And Rob was a PhD biochemist. So he was the first one that really told me, he was like, hey man, like just stop reading everybody's books. Like, you don't need to read like Mark Sissel's book and then Dave Asprey's book and then Abel James's book. And like all these guys have now become my friends over the years, which is amazing. I love them. They're amazing people. But Rob was really the one that was like, go study human metabolism. And he started sending me some of the textbooks that he went through in school. So I learned a bit of biochemistry, human metabolism. And then it was really, I went home and I made a paleo superfood baby formula in my kitchen with food dehydrators and food processors. And we're like, this is better. And the neurologist was like, yeah, this is better.
Yeah.
So we started giving her this, like, kind of this, not freeze dried, but like a dehydrated, just nutrient dense whole food.
Yep.
Right? Let's not give her poison.
Yep.
And let's give her nutrient dense whole
Oh,
food.
wow.
Which was like formed my philosophy around what I now teach people, which is a very simple concept of food versus poison.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And because we can talk about this, we're all obsessed with fitness and physique. And I've been 9% body fat and I've been 25% body fat.
Yeah.
I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu and I've done all this performance stuff. So it's like there's calories in, calories out. We can talk about all this stuff.
Right.
But I realized, like now, after 10 years of this and teaching other people and everything, I'm like, oh, it really comes down to food versus poison.
Yeah.
Like, even if we make the argument that calories in, calories out is correct, we're assuming we're talking about food.
Right. True. Absolutely.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Right.
So the moment it's not food, the
Yep.
moment we're talking about metabolic toxins, well, the idea of calories becomes almost meaningless,
Right. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of how we got here. Now that was, Savannah was born 10 years ago, and now I'm here with 650,000 followers, two
Yeah.
supplement companies, a private Facebook group, and people have my brand tattooed on their skin,
That's awesome. I mean,
That's
that's definitely a
amazing.
game changer for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting too that as a male, you were talking about body dysmorphia and disordered eating, because I do feel like those two things tend to always, like, women always think that they have those, but it's like, no, it can affect anyone. And just because you maybe don't have clinically diagnosed bulimia or anorexia, disordered eating is also a very common thing where it's like, it's just that version of that relationship with food and just a general understanding. But the more knowledge you have, for me, I was always like, well, just turn it on its head and control it. Like, feel empowered to just make the decisions that you want to make. And it can be a really positive outlet,
Yeah.
But yeah, those two, that's interesting that's part of your journey, and then how all of that kind of set you off onto this whole new path.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting piece about it took me a couple of years to figure this out. Was when I first started, I was basically going on Facebook Live and telling people what I had discovered about the medical system. And I read books like Medical Nemesis and heard these things like mainstream medicine's the third leading cause of death in the West and all that. I'm like, wait a minute. So I start going down these rabbit holes, and I was just sharing because I was angry. It's actually very hard for me to listen to old podcasts because I now have 10 years of personal development. And I mean, I'm like yelling at the camera. I'm like, fucking bullshit. Right? I'm like, so angry. And what was strange is I looked around one day and 85% of my clients, my audience, everything was middle-aged women who were almost all overweight and sedentary. They didn't have a history of fitness and exercise and all this stuff. Yep. So we started polling them. Like, how did this happen? I didn't purposely attract these women.
Yeah.
And it was this organic thing where like the number one comment we kept getting back when we asked people like, why Clovis? Why are you here? Why'd you join this Facebook group? That Justin was the only man who wasn't telling me it was my fault and wasn't telling me that I'm too stupid to count calories correctly and wasn't gaslighting me and saying, well, no, you must be eating Snickers bars in the middle of the night and not telling anybody. And I was very aggressive. I was very alpha at the time because that is kind of naturally me. And they felt protected by it. And that was one of the things, I mean, I have goosebumps talking about it. It's one of the things I'm still the most proud of is that these women felt protected by me rather than judged by me.
That can be a common thing in the fitness industry with personal trainers. And we did just kind of have that in a bit. I feel like in an episode recently too, where we were just talking about how there are trainers that will just be like, oh, when it comes to obesity, you're just fat and lazy.
Yep. And it's your fault.
And it's your fault. And like, it's just you and it's a you problem and you just need to fix it. And you just need to work harder and try harder. And
it's just not always that black and white. And everybody has a story. Everybody has a journey and everybody got where they got, for different reasons.
Yep.
And you got to get to the root of that.
Yep.
Well, this is, I ask this question a lot when I'm on podcasts and you two may know about it. If not, it's amazing. There's a book called Invisible Women. You familiar with this?
Mm-mm.
Invisible Women is a book that basically it's like a massive masterclass in the fact that something like 90+% of all science we have is conducted on male subjects, especially exercise physiology, especially nutrition science. And because of the way these studies are set up at these sort of, these universities that have these giant research departments and everything, it's usually college-age men.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you have women that are like cold plunge, fast. Like my fitness plan is the same every 4 weeks. Like I'm not paying attention to my cycle at all. I don't care what part of my cycle I'm in. I'm just going to be lifting heavy every single day. So they end up incredibly gaslit because you have these guys, right? The 25-year-old who's taking his shirt off at Planet Fitness is like, the science says intermittent fasting is the best.
Yeah.
You do it. If you can't do it, you're lazy.
Yep.
And you're like, dude, you don't even know what you're talking about.
No,
you don't even know enough to not know what you don't know.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And
so anyway, that's kind of my rant about. But Invisible Women, for anyone listening, go read Invisible Women. It's very important.
It is. There are differences. I mean, there are physiological differences, and you could do it every 28 days as it relates to your cycle. You can do it it's hormonal differences through different stages in life. I mean, we both have had kids, so it's like, if you've had children, you are having different hormones through pregnancy, post-pregnancy, when you start getting of the age where it's like it's perimenopause, menopause, post-menopause. I mean, all of that changes. Men don't have those same different phases in their life.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe time for a little quick ad break. Be sure to check out NachoFitnessCoach.com to purchase exclusive merchandise, including the wine tumblers we use during recording and the gear that we wear. You can also listen to our episodes and access direct links to our social media. All right, we're back. At all. Like, you can't even compare. It is like apples and oranges. So, I mean, even if we are all...
And not that they don't have their own different set of challenges with hormones and that.
No, ours is just next level.
It's different.
I mean, it's just next level.
Well, what you don't have the advantage, right? It's like, yes, both, I know gender is a touchy word, but like both sexes, right? They have their individual challenges. Yes. Yeah. But we, like the book Invisible Women talks about, we have a tremendous disadvantage because all of the science is relevant to us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right? So it's easier for us to pick this apart and not be gaslit and just said, like, the science says this. And something I prided myself on when I was working with professional MMA fighters is my female fighters, if I have to cut them from 136 to 115 for weigh-in, they don't get amenorrhea. Every other person in their gym
they do
weight cutting getting amenorrhea.
For sure.
So if we look at it like that, right? Okay, we're treating the women like the men. We're doing the same things that the men do with the women for these weight cuts. And all of a sudden, like, one of the things that makes them female is they can have a baby in their belly.
Right.
This goes out the window. We
Yep.
destroy their fertility. So it's such a giant red flag, and we just completely overlook these things because everyone is so dogmatic about science. The science says, the science says.
Yeah.
And like, well, she's over here with no period.
Yeah.
So something tells me that a problem is afoot.
And, it's very quick for like endurance athletes, high active athletes, significant weight cuts. There are uneducated coaches too that are like, that's just part of it.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
And you're like, no, that is not just part of it. You know what I mean? And you're like, what? No, that is not typical. Like, it might be normal, but it doesn't have to be, or it might be typical.
Yeah.
Like, it might be reoccurring and typical, but it doesn't mean it's normal. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, don't settle for that. If it doesn't feel right, and that could happen in any different ages of life. Right. I mean, teens all the way up, that can affect you, but it shouldn't. It doesn't have to.
Of course. And then I have women that come to me in their 50s, and they've been on, chemical birth control because since they were 12 years old, and they had a headache once, and their doctor was like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
It's astonishing. It's really strange. And then, I mean, this is when I started really understanding just how confused some people were that were like deemed experts with like high level credentials and stuff. It's like, I would have women tell me that I was the first person ever to tell them that it's important to weigh themselves month to month on the same day of their cycle.
Yeah.
Like, don't compare day 1, month 1 to day 17, month 2.
Yeah.
Right.
You're going to get a skewed reading. There are different hormones pumping through your body, and there's different water retention and all this stuff.
Yep.
It really was just very eye-opening. And I struggled with it for a long time because I was like, yo, my bachelor's degree is in songwriting. Okay.
Right.
Why is a songwriter from Nashville the guy that is bringing this to your attention?
Right. Right.
And then because of the way social media is, there's so much toxicity in the land of health and wellness that I was attacked ruthlessly. Right. But I think these people, I have 15 years of stage experience.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, cool.
Right.
Here we are.
You're
Okay.
gonna hurt me.
Exactly. It's like, you can pull my pants down on stage. My face isn't getting it. It doesn't matter. Like, this is totally fine.
This is nothing.
Oh, that's
so I was
awesome.
able to just keep going. But I think a lot of people that come out and do things differently, they get smoked by hate and they quit.
Yeah.
They don't put the message out there. They don't help people. And I see that a lot. There's a lot of smart people I know that have stopped making content because of the hate.
Yeah, well, because it happened so fast. So this last week, I saw a video that there was somebody that was definitely like bodybuilder, world. And he showed a video, and it was like a stitch of a guy, like a normal guy. And he's like, this is the product of working out, lifting 3 days a week for 15 years. And he was a good looking dude. It was like, that was the video. He posted it to share his progress and be like, I'm really proud of where I'm at. It's about consistency, 3 days a week for 15 years. This is what I've been able to do. And the comments then on his page was like, bro, you're doing it wrong, this and that, da, 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 da. And so then there was the trainer guy, stitched in, and he's like, what is wrong with you people? He said he's natural. How we have gotten to the point where social media has skewed your view on what health really looks like. This guy is nailing it. He's being consistent. He had great shape. No, he wasn't super lean, but you know what? That's also not healthy to carry a 4% body fat all year round. Like, bodybuilders don't do that for a reason, right? And so it's like, he's like, you people are wrong. So he went through and like read, obviously some of the most hateful ones, I'm sure, but he was like, no, you guys are actually wrong. You keep doing what you're doing. You're great. But everyone else in the comments, you guys just need to stop, because what you don't realize is social media has completely screwed with you to think, oh, what's normal of health and
well,
what's
that's so
not.
hard to come in as a beginner, and you don't know what you don't know. So when you go in and you're trying to, you go to the internet to find information. And, I very quickly realized that, like, what's real and what's not, like, who's giving me the right information, because I don't know, And and it's so easy to follow somebody or some, piece of advice that turns out was bullshit. And
Yeah.
Yep. It's
Yeah, we actually have a neon sign. My favorite thing in the world is philosophy, right? I'm obsessed with it. We have a neon sign hanging in our living room downstairs that says "What's water?" And it's from the David Foster Wallace commencement speech, where he tells the story of what's water. And it's basically there's two fish swimming in the ocean, and they're two young fish, teenage fish, and an older fish swims by, and he says, "Hey boys, how's the water?" And he swims by, and the two fish look at each other and say, "What's water?" You know, it's this understanding that you don't know the bubble you're in.
Yep.
You don't know what you don't know.
right.
And this is really the place that we find ourselves in health and wellness, is we have people, especially with the morphing of our social media brains, right? Like, you got to remember, like, I was on YouTube as a musician in 2012 when I did the TV show, and I was super early to the game. YouTube was 2 years old.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? So we have it in our minds, this social media thing with the Photoshop, and now there are apps now where you just click a button and you have six-pack abs.
Yep. Right.
And like, so we have this understanding. My favorite example of this is I tell people to go back and look at Hugh Jackman from the year 2000, the first X-Men, and then look at Wolverine from 2024. There's a side-by-side picture of them on the internet. It will break your brain, and it will help you understand how royally fucked our psychology is from social media body comparison culture. Because in the first one, he looks amazing.
Yeah.
Right? 2 years later, he was voted the sexiest man alive. That version of Hugh Jackman could not sell $27 fitness plans on Instagram. All the comments would be like, "Do you even lift, bro? Look how chubby this guy is. What's this guy? 13% body fat? What a loser." Right? So then you fast forward to 2024 Wolverine, and it looks ridiculous. And he's on every steroid on the planet. And it's peptides, and it's injectables, and it's cold plunging, and it's fasting, and it's scientific new machines so we can work our bodies. And it's like, go back to 1930 when there was no obesity, there was no diabetes, there was no heart disease, no nothing. Nobody looked like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock.
Yeah.
No.
Not a single person.
No.
Yep.
Nope.
It's incredibly unnatural and quite damaging. So what I try to help people see, I have a term that I use for this that makes men very angry. And then they get super angry. I'm like, cool, come roll jujitsu with me. We'll be fine. I use this term that is, we are swimming in the internet full of infertile six-packs.
Yeah.
These men that look like Greek gods, they look like something from the movie 300. They're completely bald, and they are completely infertile, and they can't function normally without injectable testosterone or testosterone creams, right? Like the leading scientist in the world right now is Andrew Huberman, who's dumping himself full of HRT.
Right.
But he's supposed to be the leading health and wellness expert. Like, hey man, it's not normal to need hormone replacement therapy.
Right.
There's metabolic dysfunction afoot. And yes, the deck is stacked against us, right? Like we just learned recently that polyester boxers can make men infertile, right? So there's a lot of things stacked against us that we didn't know, and we're constantly learning and growing. But we have to understand that, like, we now have super, what we would call like dysfunction in the obese direction, taking advice from dysfunction in the body dysmorphia, very unnatural steroids and peptides crowd. And the middle ground has been completely washed away. So people don't even start. It's the same thing, not only Hugh Jackman, but it's like when Kim Kardashian, all of a sudden it was like the Kim Kardashian break the internet photo.
Yeah.
Which is like this impossible butt and impossible waist. And you're like, wait, human bodies don't look like that.
No.
And then the next 10 years is like big booty, tiny waist culture.
Yep.
And it literally shifts the norm
It does.
in a way that's unbelievably difficult to recover from.
Do you follow, do you know John Dorsey on Instagram? Just Goob, you too. He does,
No.
he takes fitness influencers and he goes through and he checks their pictures for photoshopping and calls them out.
Oh, wow.
Which is, I've followed it for probably about a year now. And
That sounds entertaining.
It's really interesting because it's a lot of people who they're trying to sell you something, and they're trying to sell you something that's not real. Their body, the body that you're seeing on their Instagram is literally not real. You talk about, airbrushing abs and all this stuff. Like, in the world we live in today, you can make your body on social media look like anything.
True. You can.
And whatever you're trying to sell people, they're never going to achieve.
Well, or you have people that spend a period of time where they're getting really fit and lean and take all their pictures.
Sure.
And then just drip it out, and you don't realize that,
I don't know anybody.
A lot of people that aren't I will definitely say I have got a collection of professional photographs that, like, have withstood time, but I have different stages of them though too. And I'm like, you could even still go like, okay, this was pre-babies. This was after first baby. Then I did a photo shoot after second baby and after third. And like, I can see which stage of life that I was in based on them, but they're all very somewhat similar and consistent.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you just don't know though. You don't know.
Yeah. You don't know what's real anymore.
And the thing about it, you know, it's kind of, if we go back and look at history, we see the threads of these things and how they happen. And like my eyes were open to this in a whole new way because my fiance was the founder of a massive beauty company. She was very successful. And she was the one to tell me that it was in like the mid 2010s, I think, or maybe between 2000, I can't remember the exact year, but the Kardashians were having all these tabloid pictures and the paparazzi was always after them. And they're trying to catch them looking ugly, basically.
Yeah, sure.
What the tabloids, look, they're just like us. They have love handles, which is super fucked up automatically by itself if they're doing that.
Right.
So what the Kardashians did was they called all the paparazzi, and all the paparazzis are not paid well. So the Kardashians' mom, she called all of the paparazzis and said, listen, any photos you get of us, we're going to pay you extra. You're going to send them to us first so we can touch them up and Photoshop them. We're going to send them back to you, and then you're going to release them as candid paparazzi shots. So the Kardashians can look perfect all the time.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe time for a little quick ad break.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening.
All right, we're back.
So now you have women reading these tabloid magazines and they're just like, oh my God, I can never look like that. Great. Like they're grocery shopping. How do they look so good? Grocery shopping?
It's so toxic and gross.
Crafted. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's been happening for decades now.
Yep.
See, I went the other way. And I was like, because people, you will get mad or you see it and you're like, or if you don't know that it's Photoshop, or if you're like, okay, I think they probably got brushed up, but you're like, how much does it change people? I mean, it can change you a lot. So I was like, I wonder what I would look like if I hired a professional photographer, got my hair and makeup done. I was like, because then to me, I feel like that's how I can do this side by side, because I'm never going to see their raw image. Right. Although my husband did work just out of high school at a really high end resort in Arizona, and he saw a lot. It was somewhere where he's seen Oprah. I mean, a lot of different people, no makeup, no nothing. Like that's where they went to vacation. He's like, they look like regular people, like normal. Yeah. And I was like, okay, so if you look regular, I'll never see your regular. So what would I look like then if I booked a professional photographer?
Sure.
I got my tan and my professional hair and makeup, and I'm like, oh, see, now that's kind of fun. I mean, it could be done though too. And I just always had things touched up, not a whole lot of like actual changes, like straight up Photoshop. But I don't know. It's also kind of fun to see because people need to know they're beautiful. I mean, they really are. Like every single person, we're unique. We've got different things, but I promise you that like if you had a chance to just do a professional shoot, do whatever, have a day where you can feel amazing and beautiful, you would look just like them in the magazine.
For sure.
But it costs money. It's ridiculous amounts of money. So that's.
Oh, I mean, each one of those Kardashian girls, it's crazy how much I know about this. I probably shouldn't know this much, but I mean, they spend over $1 million each on those girls for a year, right? It's like laser facials and this is,
and then they go out and they say like, oh, this is our workout, and if you do this, like, no, that's bullshit. It has nothing to do with your workout.
Exactly. So that's the thing. It's like and it's like you said, if somebody goes and they get done up and they have a professional photo shoot or whatever, the most important thing is that there are millions of people in the world who would see that photo and say, that is my ideal woman.
Yeah. Yep.
Or that is my ideal man. It doesn't matter what Kim Kardashian looks like. Kim Kardashian is not my ideal woman. My fiance is my ideal woman. Yep. She's the most beautiful one I've ever seen in my life. So like, why are we playing this game?
Yep.
That we're just like on this chase so that like the most people think that we're the same level of attractive as the famous person. I mean, it's a race to the bottom for your mental health.
It is. Yeah.
Sure.
And that is the struggle with social media because I really believe that social media never started to go down that path.
No,
I really do believe it genuinely started as a way to kind of connect people and all of the things, but it's reared this ugly head and like what it's morphed into. And you have to pay attention for yourself and realize, oh,
Well, and I know for Sarah and I we both have 10-year-old daughters, and it's just, it's like we're not only are we trying to figure it out for ourselves, like we're trying to navigate through this, but it's like we also have these young girls that are coming, literally being raised in this. And how do you weed through like how to bring them up in a world where, they're being sold something that's not real?
I'm gonna keep her in my bubble as long as I possibly can.
I know, that's what we're trying to do, but
I was about to say, I think the biggest thing, right? I mean, you have 10-year-olds. It's like they already know how to use devices.
Yep.
I mean, 3-year-olds unlock iPhones and everything. But it's like, if we can instill self-love, the earlier the better, before all the comparison stuff happens. So I find myself now, like I'm backtracked. Like anyone, man, woman who comes into my programs, they're usually there to lose weight. And the very first thing I'm going to have them all do, which is daily non-negotiable, is you're going to stand in the mirror, you're going to look yourself in the eyes, and you're going to say, I love you 10 times, like you mean it. And the number of people that cannot do this.
Yeah.
I have had women try the first time, they burst into tears.
I mean, I would say for a lot of people, that's harder than any meal plan or workout plan that you're going to put them through. That is incredibly difficult to do.
Exactly. And the men, they do this, bro, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
That's so weird. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, man, this is the shadow work. This is the thing that we need as a society to love ourselves the way that we are. Because I think what the world is doing, and the reason why, 88% of the population has metabolic dysfunction. Over 75%, if we count overweight, obese, and morbidly obese, 75% of adults. Right? So clearly, like, this thing is not working. Yeah. We have to take it back to basics and do the actual work to getting healthy, which is like 90% emotional and psychological. It's actually easier for me. This was true, right? I didn't get in touch with my emotions until my early 30s when I hired a somatic coach and learned how to cry. Yeah. Right. It was like, I don't need to cry.
What's that like?
So yeah, the somatic work really cracked this open for me. It was like the Hoover Dam. It was like, once I accessed the emotions and the dam broke down, then I couldn't stop crying. Yeah. Right? I had to go through this whole experience. But it's like, listen, we're so suppressed. We have such low self-worth, such low self-love, that the hard work is actually not powerlifting. Yeah. The hard work is not bodybuilding, right? The hard work is like being honest, showing up as your most authentic self, telling people I have insecurities and I've been photoshopping my pictures, right? Like, I find that we live in this world of biohacking, and it's like how many minutes in the cold plunge and what peptide and what workout and what this. That is an avoidance pattern for the real work. Right? The work that people avoid doing, which is the internal work of self-love.
Oh, wow. I love it.
This is hitting home for a little bit, Kaylee. So we did have an episode at one point, and I don't even remember what we were talking about, but I said something about crying, and she was like, I don't know how to cry. And I was like, wait, what? So, that was a thing for her where it's just...
I think even for me, I think my journey really started out, I spent a few years and, having babies and postpartum depression and miscarriages and just this whole slew of really hard things happening. And then I kind of came out of it and I'm like, now I want to be somebody else. I want to look like somebody else. And that's, it's kind of how I set about. And then through it, I've learned like, who am I? Like, can I just get to know myself? But I still can't cry.
What would it feel like for you to stand in the mirror and say, I love you and try to mean it?
Oh, that'd be hard. Yep. Yeah. Yep. I know what you're talking about, and I know why that's important. Like, I think I'm in a place where I know that's where I need to get, but doing the work to get there, I would just rather
try and
eat my vegetables. And
you'd rather just Band-Aid everything. Why would we want to actually fix the problem?
Right. But I do recognize, I feel like I have done a lot of work, and, and it's a different process for everybody. And
do you have people around you that you feel what I call unconditionally safe with, people that you can share anything with?
Now I do. Yeah. Yep.
Amazing. Yeah. This is the way that I work this with clients. I have worked with a tremendous number of women who've been overweight for a very long time, and they have very low self-worth and self-love, and they don't feel beautiful. And a lot of times they have a partner, man or woman, who is there just loving the shit out of them.
Yep.
It just loves them a lot more than they love themselves, and tries to remind them that they're beautiful, but it's this internal game. The reason that I start with mirror work, I did not know we were going to go here on this.
We told you I can go anywhere.
Yeah, the deeper work that I do with one-on-one clients, can only be described as life coaching, right, or spiritual coaching.
Yep.
Is I try to help everybody see that your entire reality is a mirror. So you are quite literally living in a simulation that you created. that is a reflexive holosphere.
Yep.
That is reacting to you in every moment so that you can learn the lessons that you want to learn to expand God consciousness.
Yep.
I start in the mirror as a sort of metaphorical you talking to you, right? But right now what's happening is both of you are communicating with yourselves through a mirror named Justin.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that I have to teach you, you already know internally. And people think this is woo-woo, whatever. It's not. It's quantum mechanics. It's how it works, right? So I always say when people struggle with the mirror work, but they have a safe partner, and sometimes people don't have safety in their community or their family, and we need to do a little more mirror work, or we need to work on building community or building safety with people. But if you have safety in your life, then you can stand in the mirror in the morning, in the literal mirror, and say, I love you to yourself. Or you can go find your partner or somebody that you feel safe with. And just so you guys know that like this takes a lot of work and it took me a lot of work, I still do this, right? I own 2 supplement companies. I have a coaching business. I have been very successful in my life. And some days I wake up and I go straight to Megan, my fiance, and I go, And she's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I feel fat and chubby and I feel like all the businesses are going to fail and I just suck and I don't know what I'm doing as an entrepreneur. And the last podcast I did was shit. And can you please just tell me that I'm the most handsome man you've ever seen and you love me and I'm your dream partner and you just love me so much. And she goes, And she holds my face and she's like, you're the most handsome man I've ever seen. I love you so much. My dream partner. Just ask for what you need.
Yep.
You ask, the mirror will give it right back to you. We live in a world of mirrors and it's beautiful. But what ends up happening with a lot of clients that are in a bad spot is they slowly realize that they are in a toxic career and the people at their work don't treat them well and their partner doesn't treat them well and their friends are gossipy shit talkers. And now they have this whole situation where they're like, oh no, okay, I need to change my internal state so that I will only have people around me that value me and love me.
Absolutely.
Yep. It's the whole like secret, the book, The Secret, like just thinking and all your things, you know. It's so true.
I love it. Justin, if you ever decide to start a cult, let me know.
You're in.
I'd sign up.
There's an amazing, I'll give him a shout out. There's an amazing coach here in town. His name's Jesse Elder. He's wonderful. And he talks about ethical cult building.
I love it.
Like, hey, listen, you can join us. Literally all we're going to do is love you unconditionally and make you love yourself. Yep. Pretty cool.
Perfect. I mean, that's good. That sounds like a great one to sign up for. I like that. Yeah. So you kind of mentioned like your experience and how you got into kind of reading more about food and making, you know, for your niece and having the conversation with the neurologist. So I recently came across something that, and I can't remember if it's an article I read or if somebody just did like a video clip from like a podcast or whatever, but their belief was that the medical industry, I mean, they don't have a lot of nutrition studies. Obviously, they're brilliant, smart people in the science. The nutrition part in their curriculum is very small, in my opinion, and that there was going to become this like rise and this need for like health coaches, right? I mean, and I've kind of seen that anyways, right? It's coming, but they're slowly going to rise up and become part of someone's, you know, kind of medical team, right? So, I mean, are you seeing that kind of already happen? I mean, you've went through and credentialed yourself, I feel like, more in kind of that area than I do it just for fun, or it's been a byproduct of some of my certifications, but I wouldn't say it's ever been very focused, like health coach curriculum per se. Yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, but I don't know. Just, do you have any thoughts about that?
Tons of thoughts. I mean, one, I have a team that does this, a team called Own It Health. If anybody's interested, I can get you in touch, where you, not only do you get a doctor, you get an MD, you get a cognitive behavioral therapist, you get a strength and conditioning coach. Like, it's the whole thing. Like, they're running your blood work and they're getting you super dialed. And that is happening more and more. The thing is, it's kind of a wealth gap situation, right?
Yeah.
It's like you need to have thousands of dollars out of pocket to get yourself a team like that. And I do think that will change over time. Honestly, like with the rise of AI and everything, I think these types of technologies will be more and more available. The problem is, I don't think that people look at the medical industry and the insurance industry for what it is, right?
I think it's maybe time for a little quick ad break. Hey, it's Sarah, and my book, Healthy Habits Challenge, 10 Weekly Habits for Better Health, is now available via hardcover on Amazon. Just go to Amazon.com and search Healthy Habits Challenge. All right, we're back.
So the best example that I use for people, and this is usually a like pull the wool over your eyes moment of like, oh, wow. is like, we all know people who have gotten into multi-level marketing, right?
We just talked about it last night on an episode.
And they're like, listen, come to my house on Friday. I'm going to show, there'll be free drinks and food. And I'm going to tell you about how Herbalife changed my life, right? And we all kind of roll our eyes like, oh man, okay. So here's a for-profit company that funds science, favorable science, to say that their products are the best. They recruit a team, let's say housewives or whatever, to host parties and sell their supplements. We see that for what it is as a marketing funnel, right? That is getting people to buy products. We don't look at mainstream medicine that way.
Yeah.
So the moment you understand that the textbooks from medical schools, what is taught, the curriculum in medical school is dictated by pharma and insurance companies. Once you realize that, you can see the marketing funnel for what it is. There is no one whose metabolism has ever been suffering from a deficiency of pharmaceutical drugs. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
And you can trace this back to John D. Rockefeller and the creation of allopathic medicine and the snuffing out of naturopaths. 80% of doctors were naturopaths not too long ago, you know? So I think that the tides are going to come back around. The issue is I can share endless resources for people who can work with really, really good practitioners. They're just not in network. They don't accept insurance.
Right. Yep.
Right. So you have this problem where people are trying to get the care that they need. I get it all the time. Hey, do you accept insurance? No, I can't.
Yeah.
Because the moment you're licensed and you're accepting insurance and everything, right? Like the standard of care for type 2 diabetes, let's say, is terrible.
Yeah.
It makes the problem worse. But the doctor knows, even if the doctor knows that the standard of care is bad, they have to do the standard of care or they will lose their medical license. So we do run into this situation of like tremendous for-profit. It's not even that we call it corruption. It's just once we understand business, this is how businesses run. Like for my business to continue growing, it has to be profitable.
Right.
And I have to make decisions that lead to more profit, right? So again, it's not necessarily bad people, but I run up against this all the time. Some of my closest friends and mentors are PhDs who have completely left the industry. One of my dear friends is Dr. Anthony J., PhD biochemist, worked at the Mayo Clinic as a virologist for the government for 20 years. And as soon as the pandemic happened, he was like, I'm out because I'm a virologist and I know what this should be and this is not what it should be, right? So you have these guys that are super highly credentialed. It's like the mafia. The moment they leave, you want to kill them. They're like, that guy's a quack, misinformation, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, he worked for you for 20 years. He did amazing work, you know? So it's really this system. When the hate comes at me online, the moment when I see people's heads explode is like some PhD will be telling me that I need to listen to him because he's a PhD. And I'm like, listen, you are perfect exactly as you are. I love you. You're an amazing person. You're probably trying to help people. But I need you to understand that the perceived authority that you believe in, this academic institute, this is an authority that you believe in, that you grant authority to. The person that handed your credentials to you, I do not accept their authority and I don't believe in their authority.
Yeah.
So you're telling me about this 3-letter thing you have on your name and it means nothing to me. But you just want me to blindly nod and say, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, Mr. PhD person, whatever you say. And I just don't accept that. And I think one of the number one, honestly, controversial topic, one of the number one reasons for the epidemic of obesity and chronic health issues in America, in my opinion, is the illusion of authority. People outsourcing their own authority just because somebody's wearing a lab coat.
Yep. Well, common sense is left building. I mean, you just got to think about it for a second. And I mean, the number of times though that I would work with personal training clients and trying to get them just to educate on like what they're choosing to consume, how many of them had never read like a nutrition label? And I mean, my whole point was you should be eating foods that don't have a nutrition label. Like if you want to go that far, eat the foods that don't even have that label. And that's actually best. But, you're going to have this transition period. I feel like for some people that's too far of a jump. Yeah. So it's like, okay, let's learn how to at least read so that you can be knowledgeable and educated in what you're choosing to consume. And like point at the ingredients. I'm like, can you read those? Right. And there's so many consonants in half of those. And you're like, if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it.
Yes. It's so simple, right? I break it down for people in a couple sentences. You could hike through the wilderness every day for the rest of your life. You will never stumble upon a bagel tree.
Never. Nope. Too bad though, because a New York bagel is delicious. But no, it will not, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I will do presentations, conversations, talks. People will ask me and I'm like, you know what? I have one rule with nutrition. And if you could follow this, like you are going to be golden. You could get buried in the details as you want, but it's my 1 ingredient rule.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stick mostly to foods that have literally 1 ingredient. And people will kind of look cross-eyed at me a little bit. And it's like, I'm like, what is in an apple? They're like, apple, you know, it's like, what's a broccoli? It's like, well, that's broccoli, you know, like chicken, it's chicken, you know? And so that again, just kind of breaks people's brains. But again, simple does not equal easy. Mm-hmm. And I get it. There's habits, there's access to food, there's money, there's a lot of things that compound it. But, you know, it really does need to boil back to that, you know, as much as possible.
It's that simple. You know, anyone who's listening, if you send me a DM, my Instagram is @JustinNaultOfficial. Send me a DM, just say food list, and I'll send you my foods list. Like over 110 foods to choose from.
Awesome.
Every single one is a single ingredient food. Right?
Awesome.
And these will help you boost your metabolism. They're extremely bioavailable. They're easy on the digestive system. And I always said, listen, you can come to me for a plan. You can get 10% body fat if you want to. We can do whatever you want to do. You want to deadlift 1,000 pounds, I'll help you. But fundamentally, the basic of just being a healthy person is exactly what you just said. If you're eating single ingredient foods, you don't really need to track anything. Unless you have some kind of aesthetic goal or something you're trying to accomplish. For a normal, average, healthy person who just doesn't want to get cancer in 15 years, just eat single ingredient food.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
You know, don't get caught up in the nonsense. So I speak on stages sometimes. A few weeks ago, I was on a stage in Orlando, and it was a room full of hundreds of very successful entrepreneurs, some of the most successful digital marketers in the world, right? 7, 8, 9-figure brands. There's a few hundred people in the crowd. And all the health questions as I'm on stage are like, which peptide and like what blood work and do you do a cold plunge, right? All the things that I told you about. And I was just like, listen, everyone in the crowd, I'm going to get serious for a second. Everyone out here, if you identify as a biohacker, raise your hand. There's like 3 people in a room of hundreds, right? So I'm like, okay, listen, you guys have all the money in the world. You have the access to the highest level shit, the red light devices, the whatever you want to do, right? But if you're asking me how to get healthy through peptides and cold plunges, and you're still eating Doritos and drinking Red Bull, this is a fundamentally flawed conversation we're having, and we need to go back to the base of the pyramid.
Yep. It's a cupcake.
We need to build you a solid foundation. You know?
We just did an episode about, I think it already came out, about Sarah found an image of a cupcake, and it's that the cake part is sleep, nutrition, and consistency, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was actually an image on like a PubMed white paper.
Yeah.
And somebody had done that, and I found it. I was like, we should talk about this cupcake.
Yeah. And then the icing was all the cryotherapy, the foam rolling, the hydrogen water bottles, like all the extra stuff. Like, and all that stuff's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you don't have your cake at the bottom, you know,
you're just eating that frosting by the spoonful, man. And it's just probably not going to get you very far, which is delicious. You know,
for sure.
I don't live by a perfect, 100% whatever, but I mean, shoot, I still do try to do the best that I possibly can as much as I can, because, I still do feel like we do live in an American culture, right? I mean, there's still just going to be stuff, and it is what it is, but, doing the best you can. And it's that consistency piece that people try to just glaze over a little bit. Yep. So I do want to talk about your nutrition, like your supplements a little bit, because I did love finding that they were like grass-fed, super high quality. And so, we've talked a little bit about the lack of, in my opinion, there's a significant lack of control of quality of ingredients in supplements. For sure. And it's not regulated very well. People think that if they just pick a jar up, whatever, it's the right stuff. And so, kind of maybe just talk a little bit about your supplement, how that came about, what you focus on with your quality and all the things, because it looked really impressive to me on the surface. So
thank you. Yeah. The daily superfood powder for Clovis, my company, is the best seller that I have. And that is Savannah's baby formula.
Okay.
I made it from nutrient dense paleo superfoods. And after, I was still in the music industry and wasn't liking it anymore. And I'd read the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. I was like, maybe I'll be an entrepreneur. Yeah. So I ended up hiring a research and development company to help me take that formula and turn it into a shelf-stable thing that I could then give to other people. And I was training CrossFit at the time. So I added a bunch of salmon and beef collagen protein to it and started selling it to CrossFitters. And that's how my entrepreneur journey started in e-commerce. So what I have always been trying to do is the things we just talked about, right? Like, for instance, I helped fund a documentary film called Sacred Cow in 2016 about regenerative agriculture and soil nutrient density. Our soil has far less nutrients than it did 50 years ago.
Yep.
It's much, much harder to get all the vitamins and minerals that we need. And the way that I look at supplements is it's supplemental to the perfect things you're already doing. But because we live in quite a toxic environment, right? Like your drinking water, if it's tap water, is not good. And your food is not as nutrient dense. You're not getting all these vitamins and minerals. So anytime I create a supplement, all I'm trying to do is take some of the most common deficiencies and help people replace them. But I'm always making the assumption that you're doing food first.
Sure.
And to your question about like quality control, I mean, quality control in supplements, is it regulated? No. But is it very easy to make unbelievably high quality world-class supplements? Yes. You just have to be willing to get on a plane and go tour places and say, what are your safety standards? What certifications do you have? What do you know what I mean? There's all these different certifications, and you'll see this in competitive athletes as well, like something that's NSF certified is basically saying like there's no cross-contamination happening in the facility where this was made. You're not going to all of a sudden test for something that's considered doping.
Right.
Because this has happened to a lot of I work with a lot of fighters, and these guys that get popped for doping, they never took anything. It's just they bought a cheap quality supplement where there was no cleaning process in that facility, right? So there's a million ways to cut corners. As a business owner, you just have to be obsessed with quality.
Yep.
You have to be willing to go fly to the place and say, give me a tour of your facility. The stuff that I'm selling to people to put in their mouth, why would I not go take a look at where that comes from?
Yeah.
So we start there. It's like the supplements are incredibly useful. They're unbelievably useful, right? But you want to get the nutrition piece right. And I think people are surprised when they come into my programs for weight loss, like the actual group coaching or private coaching in the online course or anything. They're like, what supplements? I'm like, no. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get there. But right now we're here. It's a single ingredient food. It's the base of the pyramid. Maybe one step up the base of the pyramid. You have your fitness, your sunshine, your sleep, all that. Then maybe another step up. Here's some supplements. Let's talk about some supplements. Right?
Yeah.
But it's not even in the first 80% of the conversation.
Right.
Yep.
Nope. Because there's a huge learning curve just in getting back to the basics.
Yeah.
With what you're choosing to consume and how you're shopping and how you're storing them and how you prep and all of the things. So, I mean, that's a huge undertaking as well. So, I think I'm on board.
Yeah.
I mean, Kaylee's ready to join your cult. I'm ready to buy your supplements. So it's like, here we go.
Yeah,
We're ready. Let's go for it.
I'm so glad you came on the show.
Yeah.
I always hate to do this part because Sarah, she could talk to you all night long. But
I can't.
I always have to be the mean one and cut it off.
Yeah. She's like, and we're good, So, but I really enjoyed talking to you. This was awesome. I would love to have any conversation with you at any point in time. If something new you want to talk about, we could go down a whole nother rabbit hole next time. But this was great. I appreciate your time. It was so nice to get a chance to meet you.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Fantastic.
We will dig up all your links and social media handles and all the things, and we will put it in the show notes. That way people know how to find you, because you let us know your handle, but we'll make sure that we include all of that so people can connect with you. And when we get ready to have the issue come out or the episode come out, we will let you know, and can't wait to share it.
That sounds great. And I always tell people this too. It's crazy that we live in this world and sometimes they're surprised by this, but when they put my handles and links at Justin Nault Official everywhere, I always tell people just go to Instagram, send me a DM, and it's going to be me. And I'm going to say, hello.
Yeah.
How can I help
Awesome.
you? It's a real conversation.
Awesome.
I know that this
I love it.
seems to be rare these days, but just send me a DM and we'll chat.
Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect.
Love it.
All right. So if there's one last thing you want to leave people with, what would you say that you would be like your final thought?
You nailed it, right? We say it two different ways. You say single ingredient foods. I say food versus poison.
Yep.
Right? It does not, anyone listening to this, if we say, okay, I'm going to give you two foods and you have to pick, one is food and one is poison. You can't opt out, right?
Yeah.
If I say steak, Pop-Tart, everyone's going to go steak, food, Pop-Tart, poison.
Right.
I say Doritos, banana, everyone's going to go Doritos, poison, banana, food, right? So everyone has it in their mind that health is incredibly complex and they just can't figure it out.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's usually a lack of self-awareness and an unwillingness to face the choices that you're making. Getting healthy is just a choice, like flipping a light switch.
Yep.
You can begin right now.
Yep.
Love it.
I love it. Flip that switch. All right. Reach out to him. Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. We'll have to talk again soon.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good day. Until next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to head over to our Instagram at Nacho Fitness Coach and let us know how you feel about the topic. Do you love it or hate it?
Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening. And if you like our podcast, leave us a rating. See you next time.
You've been listening to Euphony Innovatives Sonified.